Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson joins me now. Governor, thank you for taking the time.
Well, sure. It's good to be with you again.
Of course. Governor, let me start out with kind of the obvious question. Of course, Tim Scott, Mike Pence, and Doug Burgum, they have all dropped out of the race. Governor, they were in many instances polling higher than you. What needs to happen in this Iowa caucus in order for you to stay in the race?
Well, first of all, I think there's an important point that needs to be made that when the other candidates drop out, the argument has been that somehow that will strengthen the alternatives to Donald Trump. And the fact is, the last polls show that Donald Trump was up. So I see that I'm taking votes away from Donald Trump, not any other candidate. Now, you asked what I need to do in the Iowa caucus, and it's very important that you exceed expectations. And many people have counted me out of this race, and so I've just got to perform and maximize my opportunity here. I'd love to be able to be in the top 5 coming out of Iowa, if not higher. And so we're working very hard doing our return to normal tour across the state, covering 30 cities leading up to the caucus. So that's our concentration.
And Governor, the holidays have wrapped up, and many Americans, of course, still living paycheck to paycheck. How should the current administration deal with what is, in many ways, a crippling economy?
Well, they need to slow down the federal spending and tighten the belt so that inflation is not eroding everybody's paycheck. They need to, at the same time, give the signal to the Federal Reserve that interest rates ought to be lowered as well. And so that's what's hurting Americans. And whenever you look at what we have to do, what I want to do to advance our economy, it's having a pro-growth energy policy, produce energy, that way it'll be more affordable, to make sure that we can grow the private sector of the economy faster than the government sector. And that's to slow down the federal budget, it is to control inflation, and it is get the private job economy back on track.
And Governor, I was in Tuscaloosa for the last GOP debate. It was, of course, a heated debate. But what do you make of people like Vivek Ramaswamy who are running in this race, who, at least it seems at times, are reluctant to do things like criticize the former president? And perhaps that speaks to a broader point as well, the idea of debates. You qualified for the first debate but did not qualify for some of the following debates. So how have you still been able to get your message out to American voters?
Well, it's been harder because the national media has stopped giving the coverage that other candidates get. So we've had to work double hard here in Iowa and in New Hampshire, making sure that we get our voice heard through the regional media and through the grassroots campaigning, and we've been effective at that. Obviously, we've got to continue that effort. Whenever you look at the debates that we've had, I was on the first debate, but I joke that with somewhat seriousness, I have more issue conversations in the diners in Iowa than I do on the debate stage. And so that's where substantive issues are talked. You learn about the challenges of real people.
And of course, we're almost out of time here, but you're at a diner right now in Waukee, Iowa. I'm curious the messaging that is coming from some of those voters who are on the ground, who are going to be caucusing very soon, of course, the fact that there are other candidates with a higher level of name recognition. So how are the people on the ground perceiving your message as you head into some of the final stretch of this campaign?
Well, whenever they know my record as a governor, as head of the DEA, in charge of border security in the Bush administration, they say, wow, that's the kind of experience that we need. Those addresses the problems we have today. And so I'm getting an incredible response. Just today, whether it's in Pella, Iowa, at a coffee shop or here, I'm getting new people to sign up for the caucus, and that's what you've got to do, is to focus on the get out the vote efforts and making sure people show up at the caucus, and that's our focus, and getting a great response on it. They're very concerned, and there's still a lot of undecided voters. That's really important to recognize. They're undecided. That give me a door wide open to run through and to get their support.
And just lastly here before we conclude, Governor, of course, as of right now on the Democratic side, it seems as if President Biden is the far and away frontrunner, given that he is the incumbent, and former President Trump is very, way ahead in the polls on the Republican side. You've been very vocal, of course, in your criticism of both of them, for that matter. What would it mean for American democracy if it is essentially a rematch of what we saw in 2020? And what would you do as a candidate in this race who, as I said, has been very vocal of the two of them?
Well, it would not be a good reflection on the political parties if the two major political parties give the voters the two nominees that they don't want. And that's what the polls show, that they don't want a Biden-Trump rematch. And so that doesn't reflect well on the parties at all. And so I speak very honestly that I think a Trump nomination would be very worrisome for the GOP and the chances to win in 2024, to attract independents, to back suburban voters. And with his current language of praising January 6th and what happened there like it was a glorious day, that's not how you win the hearts and minds of Americans, because they saw what happened then. And it was not a great day for America and our democracy.